Hello everyone, welcome to the Red Room. Today we're going to review a game that is not new, quite the opposite. It's been around for a long time, but it's one of our favorite games. So it's Kult, first edition.
This thing here.
That is only the beginning.
As usual, I will say that this is not actually a review.
Uh,
We are going to talk about Cult. Not really a review for this because, well, why not? This has been around for so long. There are enough reviews.
and there is the new version, the new edition that we're going to be honest about it and say we played it, we bought it, we don't like it because of the Powered by the Apocalypse rules. They're just not for us.
Yeah, I don't think Powered by the Apocalypse fits horror. There are people who agree that it does. There are people who say it doesn't. Well, I think I'm pretty sure that it doesn't. I can't use it anyway. I couldn't use it for any other kind of game, but I think for horror it's even worse. There's another thing that I have a problem with. A lot of people who bought Cult Divinity Lost, probably because the new one. Probably because it is a apocalypse world, powered by the apocalypse game. They brought a new, different approach to the game.
Into horror in general.
These are the people like X cards and those kinds of the safety tools, and I dislike that to no end. And also the themes, they prefer dark fantasy.
More urban fantasy than actually personal horror.
Dark urban fantasy isn't really. And then the game itself, Cult Divinity Lost, it's the book itself, the core book, it's interesting, but there are some certain things that were published by freelance writers, I think. There's that game where, that scenario where Trump and Mike Pence are, I'm not sure what, Razites or Nephrites or something like that, and that's totally stupid idea because, well, I don't know Mike Pence. Maybe Mike Pence could be a creature from. But Trump was a celebrity millionaire. He was a reality show presenter. No, that's completely, absolutely ridiculous that someone. This is a game that is based on the illusion, so no, not really. So okay, let's go to Cult. That is only the beginning. First edition. A lot of people don't like the rules in this game. I'm not a fan, but well,
I don't like that it has too many stats, and we have this discussion. He says it doesn't have too many stats, but every time I make skills. I wanted to say skills. Every time I do a character, I always forget to put some points in a skill that then I really need in the game, and I get really upset. And I have a lot of points in skills that I never use. So I don't like that.
There's a problem because there are in fact many. We can see a list of them. This is the columns with a lot of things.
That's all skills.
This is the skill list. You have things like, for example, that there's a problem in weapons. So you have automatic weapons and rifles and bows and handguns and heavy weapons. So in melee, throwing weapons and daggers and
But to be fair, lots of games from that time had the
yes,
same.
This is a. I'm not sure if this is if it was copied from Traveler or some other game, but it's similar because you have statistics like attributes like agility, ego it's intelligence, comeliness, education, perception, constitution, strength, charisma, and then skills are based upon one of the attributes, but you don't really add them. You just rule separately. There are attribute rules and skill rules, and what the thing that's or the connection between the two things is that when you want to raise a skill above the ruling attribute, you have to pay more, and sometimes I think it's probably impossible. I'm not sure about that, but I can't remember. I haven't played this for a long time.
Well, actually, we played over a year ago, before you started to write your own scenarios. We were actually playing.
It was a short stint. You played a few campaigns, but well, anyway. So this is the problem with the rules. There are too many skills, but then there are things I like about it. For example, advantages and disadvantages. I liked very much this list of advantages and disadvantages, specifically all the mental disadvantages. Obviously, this is a game that has kind of sanity rules. They aren't called sanity rules; they are called mental balance rules. It's even better because sanity is just you just
go crazy.
Yeah.
But in this case, right, there's the scale here. That in here are balance. If you go too negative, you go insane. If you go too positive, you also go insane, right?
Yeah, it's the difference between a psychopath and a saint. They are all arranged in different ways, and at a certain point there are physical changes, which also happen to devils and saints. So what is Kult? Well, it's a contemporary horror game, of course. It's based on unlike the new one, which is called Gnostic game. This one has the same kind of mythology, but I think the main difference is that first edition and second edition and third edition, because they didn't change that much until fourth edition. It is more based in the fact that reality is a lie, and that's the main thing about this setting. So you have the mythology, the archons, and the demiurge. The demiurge is not really God, but it's a kind of a divinity who controls our reality, or not anymore, because the demiurge disappeared. It was gone at the end of the 19th century, when people started disbelieving.
When the Age of Enlightenment started.
After that. So there were certain... So a long time ago, the demiurge created a prison, a jail for humanity, because humanity a long time ago had certain powers. Humans were kind of something like angels, probably, but even more powerful. So
and they were abusing the power, right?
Yes, they were too powerful.
Yes,
and
we were trying to probably, I don't remember, upset the balance. And
there was some problems, yeah. So the archons were the foremost servants of the demiurge, and some of those were the ones who wanted to get rid of humanity because of its power. So you had Kether the ruler, who represented kind of nobility powers, and Bina the Black Madonna, who was the matriarch, and Gebura the judge, the kind of a dispenser of justice and a magistrate. Tiferet, considered a spider in a web, master of intrigue. Malkuth was a rebel among the archons and the one who sided with humanity meanwhile. And then there was the other side of the archons and the demiurge, the Astaroth, which is a kind of a dark twin of the demiurge, kind of a devil.
But not really.
And there are the shadows of the 10 archons, who are the death angels, and I'm not going to mention much about them.
They are the opposite.
I'll just archons, say the names: Thaumiel, Shagidiel, Satariel, Gamishikot, Golab, Togarini, Areb Serap, Samael, Gamaliel, Nahemot.
Okay, you didn't summon a demon. I was afraid for a second.
No problem. Okay, so after humanity was cast down or something like that, the demiurge created a prison, a jail, which is our reality, our world, and some certain servants, the lictors, were given the task to control and they started to live among people, and there are others who live among people disguised, of course. So that's why reality is a lie. Because
normally the lictors are more or less powerful, right? They are in positions of authority, so they can control us.
Mm-hmm. They usually are, for example, but they don't have to be really, really powerful. They could be a mayor, for example, or even a sheriff or something like that, priest. So they aren't human. They are big creatures, fat creatures with long tongues pending from their mouths. Blue tongues.
Like the description of how the lictors really look like. It's disgusting and completely. It's good for shock.
All creatures here. Well, not every one of the creatures has a human form, but a lot of those have. Well, not actually a human form, but what they have is a power to cover their own
It's just
appearance.
an illusion.
Yeah, it's an illusion. Exactly. As everything else, it's an illusion. So they can pass off as humans, but in fact they have disgusting aspects. And that's another interesting thing here, because the original Kult and the subsequent editions, except perhaps in part this one, were very much based on Clive Barker's work. You could basically say that Kult was Hellraiser, the role-playing game, with the file numbers scratched from it, because serial numbers filed from it, I mean. Because that's basically that. There are other sources of inspiration, obviously. Cronenberg's movies, and David Lynch's movies, movies and the Twin Peaks too. And several other things. If you read some of the descriptions, well, obviously William Burroughs is also an inspiration. All of those are quoted. So Nietzsche is also quoted, and I don't know, some other.
I think I'm missing someone that is more a bit important. I think we are missing something, but maybe it's not an obvious reference.
An author?
Yes, an author or a director. I think there's something.
There are lots of things here. Yeah. I'm not really sure because there are things that I'm also a fan, so I found them. But certainly there are things that I never heard about, and they are mentioned there. So really, but Clive Barker is probably the most important, and that's what I missed most, because you noticed immediately that the new game and even the past edition, some of those were already going further from
it's
that.
That edge that Clive Barker has when he writes on these descriptions. They're always. He's also a good writer, but. In spite of being a genre writer, but there's something of that in Kult, of that edginess. Yeah,
that's it. They didn't shy away from writing.
Yes, blood, guts, sex,
yes,
physics.
Yes,
things that are exactly disagreeable.
And even
do for good or
even the disadvantages, namely the mental ones. There are things here that you certainly wouldn't find in other games. So, for example, sexual neurosis is one of the disadvantages, and intolerance is one that, well, at the time it probably wasn't contentious, but nowadays it would be, and fanaticism also, and what else? Maimed, yeah. Definitely, that one will be problematic now.
Well, phobia is not problematic. Yes, it is. If you have a phobia, then you have an expert.
But then you have things like paranoia and schizophrenia that you can play a character like that. So at the time, those ones were probably the most contentious, because you can play a very dark character here.
Yeah, and you can still play it.
You only stop playing it if you go too far down the mental balance road. So the dark one or the light one.
Or if you go down or too high.
Yeah, if you get also because it gets the character gets too powerful, and you'll find enemies that will destroy him. So even you probably don't get there because you'll die before it. But death is only the beginning, exactly. So no problem. No, not it can be a problem because not every game master will want to continue that. So the disadvantages are important here because they create immediately the feeling that I was mentioning. The player's handbook, I think player's guide, I'm not sure the name of it, has a series of
extra.
It has more skills also, yes. But it's a few more disadvantages too. And not only that, but it there are some paragraphs written by different authors about the influences for Kult, and that's also interesting to read. That book is only for first edition. That's one of the reasons probably that Kult first edition is my favorite, because of those descriptions, those suggestions they give to the game masters and players, and that wasn't repeated in the newer editions.
So would you say that Kult is, at least for you, the best horror game ever written?
This is the best game ever written. No, not only horror, but the best game. I have no doubts about it. Okay, and I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion. People like Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, yeah, it was necessary. It would the hobby wouldn't exist without Dungeons and Dragons. But this one is my favorite, and I think it was very good written at the time.
It was groundbreaking.
It was very well translated. Also, it's I don't know if. I don't know the original version, of course, the Swedish one. I have no idea if it was as good as this, but the English translation is very good for a role-playing game, of course. Okay, so there are other things about the setting that we should mention, of course.
Metropolis.
Yeah, not just that. So, as I was saying before, the world is a prison, a jail. But there are other worlds or dimensions, and one of those is Metropolis. It's the most interesting of them. Metropolis is the original city, of which all of our cities, human cities, were a kind of a copy. Not because we remembered it, at least not consciously, but because it was imprinted in our DNA. The memories when we were great and powerful in Metropolis. Metropolis is where the Demiurge and the Archons were based and still are, the ones who are still there, because there was a point when the Demiurge disappeared, and when he disappeared, several other Archons, several of his servants also disappeared, and eventually Astaroth, his dark twin, also disappeared because he went looking for his twin brother or sister or whatever. Because, well, you know, these things, one cannot exist without the other, so that's when everything went to shit. So the Archons start losing power, and
start to go strange in our reality.
That's why the game exists. So there was a perfect jail, but suddenly there were cogs in the machine, and things aren't working exactly as they should. So I would say, as an example, probably it's also an inspiration, the movie Dark City. There was a perfect machine there, there's an illusion, but suddenly there's a guy who can see things.
Behind the illusion.
Basically, you are playing that guy. I don't know his name, but I can remember it. But that's it. That's what you are playing. There are several other movies, of course. I remember one with Tim Robbins. What's it called? We saw it recently.
Yes, the Jacob's Ladder.
Jacob's Ladder, yeah. That's something. That's probably something like that also. That's the kind of thing that happens to a cult character. You suddenly start seeing things, and then you see things. For example, between our jail, so our reality, and Metropolis, there are several passages. One of those is the Borderlands, which are kind of they are Borderlands precisely. They are the middle ground between our own reality and Metropolis. When you approach the Borderlands, reality starts disintegrating. You start seeing strange things. There are also other options. Places where something violence has happened, or a war or something like that. There are breaches in the illusion.
The usual, right? Hospitals,
asylums, battlefields, jails, orphanages.
And there's another reference there to Clive Barker, not just for Hellraiser, especially the second movie, in which we see the city, or hell in that case. It's hell, but it's a city. But I'm also thinking about one of his tales from the Books of Blood. Of course, I don't remember the name, but it's in a jail, and there is a guy that's committed a crime on purpose to get in jail because his grandfather died in the jail and is buried there, and he wants to contact with his spirit to get some powers because the grandfather was kind of a wizard. And when that happens, it's taken to a city that is just called the city. It's a desert city. I don't know if you remember that one.
Not remember.
But it does have a sense of Metropolis. And there is the guy that is sharing the cell with his kids, and he starts entering the city also.
Yeah, that sounds a
lot like Metropolis.
Yeah. So Metropolis, as we said before, is the primordial city, and it still exists. It's basically decadent and in ruins, most of it, but it still exists, and some of the archons still reside there, and many other creatures and people. People who were lost, and and some people chose to really stay there. It's one of the places that you can eventually go to because it's dangerous and there are consequences, but you can even eventually it's something that you can put in your campaign, allowing the characters. Well, hell, which is called here Inferno, is probably a bad idea, at least if you want to keep those characters alive, because they will probably
unplayable.
Yeah. But this is just an option because, well, as I was saying, there are several realities, and not just this one. There's Gaia also, and there's also the World of Dreams. It's not called Dreamland, that's Lovecraft, but it's also a place, and there are several others. But those are the extremes. Usually, what happens is that you deal with the breaches in the illusion that happens right here. It can happen anywhere, there's that it turns it kind of easy for the game master. That's one of the problems with those new rules, because it's difficult to do that. You have to play with those move things, and you can't just say, okay, you just fell down a hole and
or you just saw something weird.
Yeah, that's it would unless you ignore the rules. If you want to play by those rules, you'll have to climb a few ladders to get there. So so that's it.
And it's basically going back to your scenarios a bit. Cult is also a big influence, right? That thing of seeing weird things in the surreal horror. It has a lot.
They mention David Lynch a lot because that's it. Surreal horror. There's a lot of it. Not just gore. It's not. Actually, it's not supposed to be much about gore. It's a psychological horror game mostly, but you can play it as a gore fest, of course. That way, the characters probably won't leave too much, but. Of course, the supernatural creatures are powerful, very powerful. Some of those are extremely powerful, even Electro, and there are hundreds, thousands of those. They are extremely powerful, and the demons, they are even more powerful. So people are not a match for those creatures, unless they have very heavy weapons. And this is Cult, and so you probably are going to do a regular person. Even though you might do a military or a spy or something like that, you can do all those things. That's another thing that people usually complain about Cult. It has drawings of weapons.
I don't know why does the drawings of weapons bother people
that
much.
Because
they can just ignore
this is supposed to be a psychological horror game, and then you have these things here. which were kind of common at the time, mostly for action-oriented games, of course.
This came from Mutant, right? But the original version
perhaps
that was
there
only
are also
in Swedish.
Rules for martial arts, and they are well. There's something here that I don't like that much. The key forces. Those are a little bit too much, but you can go around that with some kind of explanation. Basically, they allow regular people to have a kind of edge, paranormal things, do something like telekinesis and something like that. Not actually telekinesis, but a small power like that, and super strength and that kind of thing. Well, anyway, I don't see any problem with pictures of weapons.
They don't trigger you?
No, they don't trigger me. And what else? Dark Secrets.
Yeah, I thought we were forgetting something when you talked about the advantage or the Dark Secrets.
It's not mandatory, but you should have a Dark Secret. Every character should have a Dark Secret. Things like, I'm going to read the examples here: Curse, Family Secret, Forbidden Knowledge, Guilty of Crime, Insanity. Insanity couldn't be one because it's offensive. Occult Experience, Pact with Dark Powers, Possessed and Haunted, Responsible for Medical Experiments, Supernatural Experience, Victim of Crime, Victim of Medical Experiments.
There are some more
juicy stuff here.
In the players.
Yeah, there's a few more.
In the player's handbook, I know there are a few more.
There are a few more. Yes. The magic, there are two versions of it. In this book it's a little less developed than in second edition.
It's ritualistic magic.
Yeah, right? It's every time it's you don't play a magician, you play a conjurer. So you have to paint some things and mention some words and some gestures and have some equipment, and it might take hours or days to get things done, and it probably when you were eaten by a monster and not really that's not a powerful ending. And also it's optional. The game master could just say you can't be a conjurer. So it's just an option that exists here. There are a lot of options. It's a big book.
Player can become a conjurer during the game, right?
Yeah, you can. It's probably the best approach to it. Would make sense
if he discovered that there's something wrong with reality.
It could even become awakened. That's what happens when you go too far in either side, or dark side or the light side. But that's even less likely, because when you get awakened, that means it doesn't mean that you get woke. It means that you remember who you really are, and people are humans were in ancient times. They were powerful, and when you awaken, you gain probably not all of those powers, but some of those.
You get entitled.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, unless you want anything to add, that my favorite thing about Kult is that the way how it approaches the balance. And my hand is out of the screen, but if we really look into it, it's hard to say who are the good guys and who are the bad guys.
Because the Archons and the Angels of Death. Well, the Angels of Death are a little bit darker, but
but some of them want to awaken the humans. Others just want to keep us in the dream.
Yeah.
So it depends on what do you prefer. What do you think it's better? Yeah. So it's very relative. I like that relativity about the game.
There's a lot of moral relativity, and you can play villains, not just survivors. You can play villains.
I remember the last campaign we played. What was it, Tarotica?
Tarotica.
Yeah. That I decided to just make my life easier and just align myself with the lictor that was supposed to be the evil guy, and just do what he asks, and he solved all my problems.
We'll probably do a few more what I'm going to call this reviews, not really reviews.
Videos about Kult.
Yeah, videos about Kult and other things.
Yeah, and maybe talk about the campaigns that we have played.
I think so. There are also, for example, these two books are basically the most important. I don't really like the campaigns they have, but we'll probably talk about those because there are some. There are good things.
One video.
Legions of Darkness describes the Archons and the Angels of Death and a lot of the creatures, the minor creatures that serve them, and it has a few examples. And it's an excellent book. This one describes Metropolis, the primordial city, and you can see there's a lot of.
That is one that is very pretty.
Yeah, the layout and all this. But there's something. Well, I don't have that one here, but I will show it in some other video. Second edition is absolutely gorgeous. It's the most beautiful book from the 90s, probably. I'm not going to say that it's the best looking book ever because there's the Genesis, and that's obviously better. But the second, well, it's a different kind of thing. It's a avant-garde stuff.
Very avant-garde. It's almost unreadable.
No,
not that one.
No,
the
Conjurer's Guides are almost unreadable. They are second edition, but I mean the actual core book. That one is black and white, so you can basically read everything. There's Purgatory and the Conjurer's Guides. Those are almost unreadable. Very elaborate and the problem is not that, but that the backgrounds have lots of colors in them. It's difficult to read. Anyway, the fact that Cult Infinity Lost was a success had a secondary effect. A while ago, if you wanted to buy any Cult for first edition or second edition, you would have to sell your kidney. But right now, you can. I won't say that it is that they are cheap.
But
they are cheap, but they are you can find affordable, especially first edition Cult. The other ones are a little less tricky to find them, at least in a good shape. Even though this is the oldest one, but there are lots of. I bought a copy because a while ago, I don't know why, I sold everything. Some of the books were kind of neglected and they started crumbling, but some of those were nice. But I repented that and I decided to buy them, not buy them again because I didn't buy my own. I bought some other books, but some of those they are even better than mine were, so maybe it wasn't all that bad. I bought 2 copies of this one. This is the.
He always has 2 copies.
Yeah.
When he likes, at least when he likes the game.
This was the cheapest copy. It's not. Well, it's probably. Yeah, most people wouldn't mind, but I.
It has a little bit of color in the edges, but the second hand. So.
Yeah, they are all second hand. This one is not really bad, and these ones they are in shape. So you can buy them anyway. You can go to eBay, Noble Knight probably, and find most of these. I bought every book, I think, almost. You could even, if you want to, and if you know some other language, not except English, so French or Italian or Spanish, you'll probably even find best prices and best copies. Probably there's an Italian edition which is practically new. I bought it new, so I think it was published sometime after the game was cancelled and out of print in English for some reason, I don't know. And the Italian edition is from the second edition time, so it's nice.
Now you just need to learn Italian.
Yes, well, I bought it, so it was cheap. It was not really cheap, but it was the price, the normal price, the cover price for it. So it was $30 probably. What this means is that you can buy them yet, so it's not stupid to talk about it. You can buy it, so it's possible. If you really want, you'll find a copy of this. And I really, 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 really think that you should try it if you haven't, because it's the best horror game ever. And it's so versatile that you can play anything that crosses your mind that is horror. As an example, I would mention my own campaigns, which were all the ones published. Almost all were originally for Kult, and you have something like a Giallos, 2 Giallos. One of them wasn't actually a Giallo.
No, the Memorial was not really a Giallo.
It wasn't. I turned it a Giallo.
It was a horror story.
But it was a horror story in a hospital, and then there was the Sisters. Wasn't made.
So Saint Claude.
Saint Cloud, which is a Twin Peaks
surreal
kind of story, and Postcards from a Valley, that wasn't the name, but it was a near future thing. So you can play lots of things, different things, and
you actually can play a spy game. This is written in the 90s, so there was still the Cold War.
I think there's a lot of mentions. There's
so many weapons, and there's probably a lot of people.
I think
that type of game.
If I would play this in the 90s probably. If you want to play it as it supposedly is, Cult, it sounds better in the 90s probably, because the game was made for that time. That doesn't mean it lost anything. It didn't. I don't think. You just have to make a few adjustments, because there's mention to some things that are obviously stuff from the 90s, but you can easily do some adjustments for that. So basically that's it for today. I think there's a lot to say about this game, so I'm not sure if you were if you were a bit confusing maybe.
Yeah, because we rented.
Yeah, there's a lot of concepts here. If you never heard about Cult, you might not know. Well, if you saw this and you found it confusing, you can ask or complain.
I was going to say that. Just drop a question in the.
And we'll try to answer that either in the comments or in a subsequent video about this. Anyway, it's a contemporary or versatile game. You can play it in other time, not just contemporary, because you have rules which are basically allow you to play something in the 19th century, 18th century, or the near future, or even the far future, if you have the time and the patience to do some adjustments. And you can even ignore the rules, because there are lots of people have played this setting with different rules, or just ignoring them.
like you?
Yeah, most of the time. You can ignore them. Well, I've never ignored them completely. I just...
You just do the little number,
when there's a problem,
the less number of rolls possible.
Yeah, when there's a problem with this, and I just roll something, and then I don't really care about it. And I just say you actually did it or not. And it's the perfect game for that, because the illusion has a lot of
power.
Yeah. So okay, that's it for today.
If you did it until the end of the video, thank you. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. Use our affiliate link to buy stuff on drive-thru. Please, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And
thank you for those who have been buying that stuff. And we will have to talk about other stuff. Probably 1 or 2 campaigns for Cult also. Fallen Angels is the one I prefer. It's almost a setting book for New York. And New York is obviously the perfect city for this, because, well, it's one of those copies of Metropolis. One of the most successful, I think.
So, shut up now.
Yeah.
We will be back with this team.
Bye-bye.